afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Vic's Basement Brewcast, as always brought to you by South Jersey Beer Scene, as well as our sponsors, Eastern Homebrew. Go and see Guy Corrado down there in Northfield. Great place to learn about home brewing and find out some more about whatever you might want to do, home brewing, winemaking, whatever, etc. and so forth. And also sponsored by Art Gallery Tattoo, Lacey Road in Forked River, New Jersey. Stop by and see Kate and the rest of the artists. Well, you can't stop by, you got to make an appointment first. So Richard, they're still waiting for you to get that Mr. Potato Head tattoo.
Can't wait.
They're still waiting, Richard, still waiting.
I'm not nervous or scared.
Okay, so this is going to be a great show for home brewers. So any home brewers that are watching this, get your friends and have a little party and watch this, because we have a lot of information on home brewing going on today. With me, as always, is my partner and engineer, Mr. Richard Rabick.
Well, hello, kind sir.
Who is going mobile, as you see. And we also have from the AHA, which is the American Homebrewers Association, and the Brewers Association. I can say /BA. Am I correct, John?
You are.
John Moorhead. John, why don't you just say what your actual titles, because I know recently you've adopted some more jobs with the association.
Yeah, I guess thank you for that intro, Victor, and glad to be here. My official title is American Homebrewers Association Competition Manager and Government Affairs Specialist. So that's primarily working on the homebrewing side, but have since taken up a lot of club programs. So the club insurance program is the primary one, as well as HomebrewCon speaker engagement and recruitment, as well as this new program we kind of launched during this pandemic, which is setting up clubs for with guest speakers, whether that's with the AHA staff or the governing committee or someone else in our vast homebrewing network.
And we've taken advantage of it at Ocean County Homebrew a couple of times, actually. We had Dave Carpenter, who's the editor of Zymergy Magazine, which is the official magazine of the AHA. And we also had you on one of our meetings also, John, talking about competition, some hints and tips around that. So that's the one advantage of virtual, is we've been able to get people on that maybe we would not have gotten on before, that aren't going to travel across the country to come here to New Jersey and attend a homebrew meeting with, 20, 25 people at it or something. So we're glad to have you here tonight on this Zoomcast, because we're going to be talking a lot about home brewing. Now, first thing I want to talk about, we always, of course, talk about some news. And Battle River Brewing, you can see my hat here, they did finally open. Richard and I actually did an honest to goodness podcast from there on Monday, so that'll be out soon. Actually, that might be out before this actual Zoomcast goes on. So that's a little close to our heart, because Ian Bartlett, the head brewer there, is a member of the Ocean County Home Brewers. And it's always great to see our home brewers succeed and be able to do something professionally on the brewing side. So a little more news that we have going on as far as brewery openings. I know the Seed, I don't know if Amanda and Sean at the Seed in Atlantic City have an official opening date, but they will be opening soon. Mechanical Brewing, which is, Richard, it's by you in Cherry Hill.
Really?
Yes, Mechanical Brewing. I think they'll be opening at the end of November. So check out those folks. Check out their websites. You can see when they're opening. So a lot of big stuff going on that side. So now, one announcement I want to make, and if you have not heard this on South Jersey Beer Scene, I know that John and I'm actually in a time trap, because I'm talking to you before we're actually making the official announcement, because this is going to come out after that. Once Richard gets through with all the editing and tries to make me look pretty. I know it's rough, but it's rough, but someone has to try.
Someone.
South Jersey beer scene, we will be holding our first actual competition, and it's to benefit the Sea Turtle Rescue and Brewery Strong, which is a charity that was started several months ago, right at the beginning of the pandemic, by Rob Callahan from Tuckahoe Brewing, and he's the president of the board, and John Kashu, our founder, is the vice president. Also, other dignitaries throughout are on it. So we're going to be holding a charity homebrew competition for homebrewers. That's why I told you, you homebrewers, if there was ever a show of ours you wanted to watch, this might be the one you want to watch. And it's not only going to be a homebrew competition for, you know, all of you homebrewers out there. It's going to be an official AHA, American Homebrewers Association competition. So those guys in my club, the Ocean County Homebrewers, who are busting my chops about how none of our competitions have ribbons and medals or anything like that. Well, you got one here, and it's going to have medals just like this in it. So this is actually the Best in Show gold medal. We'll have a few different categories where we can have winners. So go to southjerseybeerscene.com to get the details on that. There's going to be a few categories that we will cover, and you know, all of the announcements are going to be on there. At this time that we're recording this, things aren't necessarily finalized yet, so we will, you know, refer you back to South Jersey Beer Scene so you can check that out and see what the categories are, what the deadlines are, etc., and so forth. I believe the winning beer, in addition to the medals, will be brewed at Garden State Brewing. And I guess the official address is Galloway Township, but it's going to be brewed down there. So actually, when I went through the guidelines, etc., and John actually helped me with some of those, gave me some ideas, because we wanted to keep it in the fall winter type of beer category, even though beer knows no seasons. We wanted to keep the styles in those categories. So actually, I did go over the categories with Adam Kernau, who's the head brewer at Garden State, and we selected some good beers. I would look, if I'm looking and I say what my favorite beers are, every one of them is on this particular list that I'm seeing there. So again, check back at South Jersey Beer Scene website and see that. I am really looking forward to this competition and to the whole idea of it. It's a good way to reintroduce the world to everything that we're doing in home.
Right.
So a few other things here. We always try a guest beer. Okay. Richard, I don't know, you better not have a beer with you since you're driving in the car.
I don't. I had a 5-hour energy shot, and I got a big bottle of water. It's about as close to exciting as I get.
It's boring, but it's very safe, Richard. So that's good.
Yes, much safer. Yeah.
I know, John. You have any beers with you?
I do. I have a Maui blonde lager.
Oh, nice. Maui blonde lager. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that beer?
Well, it's super clean and crisp and kind of like a little bit like a Helles, but
nice, very nice.
Really can enjoy it any time, whether it's warm, cold, sunny, or cloudy. And you know, a little added bit is Garrett Marrero is on our board of directors, so get to support him too. As a function of that, I bought it in San Diego. I was just there last week, and now I'm back in Colorado, but I still got my Maui beer. So
nice.
It's the closest I can get to Hawaii without actually going there.
Nice.
Right. How was San Diego?
It was
I hear a lot
great.
about what's going on. Was it? Because I hear a lot about LA, but nothing about San Diego.
They are kind of as far as the pandemic is concerned, they're kind of the star child in California as far as how they've handled everything.
Right.
They're just started reopening a bunch of places. Still have a lot of restrictions in place, but
Sure.
yeah, it was really pleasant. It was 80 degrees, sunny the whole time, little smoky a few days, but winds
Right.
seemed to clear it out a bit, and got to smell the ocean and swim in the ocean, which I don't really get a whole lot of in Colorado. So,
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely not. Where are you at in Colorado?
I'm out in Boulder
Oh, okay,
area, actually
nice.
close to Lafayette and Louisville, honestly. And there's
Sweet.
a brewery out here called Westbound and Down that is taking over a tap or a small brewery that was right next to my house that had some trouble after the whole shutdown and sheltering in place, and then not being able to really get people through the door as a brew pub business.
Right.
And they were able to set up a deal with this brewery Westbound and Down. Endo Brewing was able to set up a deal with Westbound and Down to sell the space off, which props to them for making something happen in a rather unfortunate, unforeseen situation.
Right.
So I'll be able to walk there soon, which will be
That could be
nice.
trouble. More trouble.
It got some trouble for sure.
Yeah, either way.
But yeah, no, San Diego was great. Great beer scene out there as well. Stopped at a few spots.
Oh yeah, some excellent breweries out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
Highly
so-
recommend going.
I've
And we'll be
always-
there. We'll be there for HomebrewCon and Craft Brewers Conference next year. So
That's where Homebrew
two
Con is
trips.
next year.
Yeah,
Oh, that's nice.
two
I've never
trips to
been.
San Diego. Oh, you got to get there.
I've done the whole up and down the Eastern Seaboard, Caribbean, Canada, never crossed the Mississippi.
I say there's no better time to
You
cross
did?
than next year for HomebrewCon.
Yes. I think
Didn't
that's
you go to
fantastic.
Colorado earlier this year?
Oh, no, I take that back. I did go to Colorado. I always forget. Yeah, I did go to Colorado last year, right?
Okay.
Yeah, unless
Yeah,
you
which was
circumvented
amazing.
the globe north-south and then cut across, you did cross the Mississippi.
Right. I
At some
did mean,
point
I
you
should
did.
have said it. I've never gone to the coast.
Okay,
Right.
very good.
I did do Colorado.
I have never
But I
been.
could-
I've been to San Francisco. I've been to Portland, but I have never. I have never been down south area.
It's another
You know-
great beer city.
Yeah, my guest beer is actually a homebrew
Ooh,
from one of our home brewers, Butch Krill. Now, Butch is known as our experimenter, and Richard, you know Butch.
Yeah.
Butch is our experimenter. Right now, he's experimenting with some kind of Egyptian, old-time Egyptian thing. He really enjoys the
Ooh.
history of it and has so much passion. Last year, he won our holiday beer competition with a cranberry, Butch, don't kill me if I get this wrong, with a cranberry apple beer. So, is it cranberry apple? Yeah.
Amazing.
So cranberry apple. So he won so what he did is he reproduced that beer, got a hold of a 55 gallon barrel, and he's had this beer sitting in it for a while now. So it's about 10.4%. It's very delicious. Butch, I even did
Wow.
the sugar rim on the outside like you recommended for me. So I have a fancy beer now. Very nice. It's almost like the color of a cider. I know it's hard to see on the screen because there's so much glare in here. I don't know. You know why? Because it's not dark out. So I still got sunlight coming in down here in the basement. But really a very, very, very nice beer.
yeah, it did. Just for that brief little thing I saw, it did look like it had a little ciderish tinge to it.
Yeah, little
Yeah.
cider. You know, it looks like the fresh apple cider right out of the tree.
Right.
Very nice job, Butch.
Are you getting more cider on the aroma or the flavor?
The aroma.
Okay,
I can
Cool.
taste that.
that's cool.
Taste that up front.
That sounds fantastic.
It's very
Where,
nice. Very nice. Very nice.
John-
And as with all the barrel beers, as it sits, it'll mellow a little bit too. John,
Right.
you know that because you're a home brewer also, right?
Yeah, I try to brew at least somewhere in between 6 and 10 times a year. It kind of fluctuates.
Where do you find your inspiration for home brewing? As far as recipes and sort of where you come up with things.
I mean, not to be partial, but I honestly, I go to homebrewersassociation.org a ton. I just know, I mean, being so familiar with it and
Right.
knowing where all the recipes are coming from and how all the recipes are vetted for accuracy,
Nice.
I
Right.
just trust it. Other than that, if I'm reading another magazine other than Zymergy, I'll try my hand at that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, honestly, just from other homebrewers, just like, hey, how did you make this?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
How much information are you willing to share with me? And then trying it on my system and trying to adapt it, obviously, because that's one of the difficult things about homebrew recipes, is just if someone's brewing on a five-gallon system and you want to brew 10, your efficiencies are going to be different, and scaling up any sort of grist or hop additions, anything else. And then usually I try to throw my own spin on it as well, just to kind of say, oh, this is my spin on that recipe, and now it's kind of my own type of thing. But honestly, I brew a lot of English ales.
Oh, there we go.
It's kind of my thing.
That's cool.
Yeah, because no one really makes them. I mean, you don't really go places where you can find a dark mild on tap, or an ESB, or Australian golden ale or something like that.
I've never even had an Australian golden ale. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Now, that's one of the reasons when we were talking about categories, English ales is one of the categories that we have on there. So home brewers, that's a little tip. If you haven't looked at that, at the South Jersey beer scene to see what the overall categories are, English ales is one of the categories, which has some bitters. And I know one of our brewers, Roger Wells, he loves making those style beers, as does Dennis Cookmus, who's one of our brewers also. And that's the type of beer that I enjoy drinking and brewing too. So those of us on the mature side tend to like those type of styles, of beers, etc. So now, what type of system do you have, John?
I now have a brew in the bag system.
Mm-hmm.
The Robo Brew. I used to.
Oh, you have Robo Brew. Okay.
I do. I had the 10-gallon, converted kegs into mash tun and water and boiling kettle.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I lived with two roommates, and we
Okay.
could kind of power through 10 gallons a little bit easier.
Right.
Sure.
Now that I live alone, I don't need 10 gallons, and I can brew more.
Mm-hmm.
I can brew different styles and not have to brew as much.
Okay.
And honestly, I think the technology behind Brew in the Bag makes it so much easier as far as cleanup, and I still get to control a lot of aspects that I've learned to love to control, as far as the grist and the hop production, the hop additions. And honestly, my efficiency has gone up on it because it's a constant recirculation. You can just use the pump and continuously recirculate through the mash and the boil. So my efficiency is, like 90%.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Amazing. And, that saves, we're talking a few bucks on grain, but it still saves you a little bit of money as far as how much you need.
What's your maximum size batch you could do in that?
You can do a little over 5 gallons.
Okay.
And I guess, or maybe you mean how big of a grist I could use. I mean, that's about, over 15 is pushing it. You could probably get up to 16 or 17. It's really pushing the capacity of the mashing.
If you're doing 15 pounds in a 5-gallon batch, that's going to be one strong beer there.
Yeah. So that is the limitation on it. Is hard to do something like anything like a barley wine or an old ale or something like that. But I think you could do it. You could just scale down the 5 gallons and make like a 3.5 gallon batch to allow that to happen. but you don't lose anything in the trub because you can recirculate the whole time.
That's great. That's great.
So
Yeah,
that's what I.
yeah, our sponsor, Guy Corrado, Eastern Homebrew, has a grainfather, and he swears by the grainfather. He loves it. He absolutely loves it.
Which is a
That's the same thing as a robot.
Yeah, same thing.
Basically,
Mine's just less expensive. That's all. Grandfather was kind of the first one, and
right.
remember I got to use one in Washington D.C.
Okay.
for an event we were doing on Capitol Hill, and that was my first kind of introduction to it. And then from there, I was kind of like, well, this is interesting. Let me try this some more. And then finally got one. Ended up liking it a lot. Now we actually have one at the Brewers Association warehouse for our brew teams.
Yeah.
Which we normally would be doing in a normal year. I run that program, and it's basically to get everyone at the Brewers Association, keeping them in touch with the brewing process. And because, not everyone who works there is a huge home brewer. So getting them just hands-on experience with the process of brewing. And honestly, it's a great talking point with our brewery and home brewing members, and getting to be able to put it on tap at our BA bar. Every time we brew 8 times a year. If you're a new employee, you're required to brew twice a year. So that's a fun requirement.
Oh, yeah. No.
To force people into. Yeah. Yeah, right.
There.
Spend a day at the warehouse brewing a beer.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. That is.
Yeah.
I'm sure there could be much worse things to do.
Yeah.
Now, John, yourself, how long have you been homebrewing?
I've been homebrewing since 2011. My junior year of college.
Okay.
My roommate was a home brewer and brewed in our tiny apartment. I think it was like 800 square feet or something. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Tried it out, brewed a Hefeweizen after we brewed an Irish Red on his stovetop system. Everything, it was overactive fermentation, got everywhere in my closet. And, the rest is history. It didn't turn me off from ruining all my shoes and whatever laundry I had on the floor at the time. And from there, I was an English major and history major, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Started kind of getting really into the brewing industry, and was reading books by Sam Calagione and Ken Grossman about how they were English majors and then opened a brewery. And I went, maybe I could do something like that. So started a homebrew club in college, and that survived for about 5 years after I graduated, which I thought was really an impressive feat because you have that small window of grabbing people by the age of 21 and before they graduate. So turnover is annual. And worked at a brewery in Pittsburgh. That's where I'm from, and went to college there. And then moved out to Colorado thinking I'd work for a brewery. Was able to get a job with the American Homebrewers Association, and I've been there for 6 years.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I know you style more toward the English, but do you go outside that? Like, do you have any favorites outside that? Or anything complicated you've ever tried to brew?
I brewed some barrel aged stuff, and honestly, they turned out well. It's just there's such a time commitment, and I like having just fresh beer that I can drink. I brewed my version of a Kentucky bourbon stout, which I threw some oak chips in, some whiskey, some chocolate, some Belgian chocolate over the course of 14 months, and then kegged it at 12.5%. And
wow,
I love that beer. And I guess this is a funny story of when I first moved into my house that I'm in now. I went away for kind of a sad story, I guess, too. no grudges or hard feelings towards my roommate. He's a very good friend. I went to Pitt with him, but I got back from Thanksgiving, and he had hosted a Thanksgiving party while I was gone.
Right.
And I got back the next morning, and he hadn't cleaned up yet, and I saw all these huge cups with this dark liquid in it.
Oh.
And he had pretty much polished off my 14 month aged
Oh my
Kentucky
God.
bourbon stout with chocolate and oak, and
Oh my gosh.
it was a real sad sight to come
my
back to,
God.
and
Oh,
had to explain to him after the fact why that was such a big deal to me, and he was very apologetic.
Oh my gosh. How much beer was that? Like what size barrel was it?
It was a 15-gallon
Okay.
barrel, and I took off like 9 or 8 gallons of it,
Wow.
and I probably enjoyed about half of that,
Yeah.
and then the rest was
Oh my
gone.
Gosh.
So that, and I was like, and I actually had planned on bottling some when I got back.
Mm-hmm.
To be like, oh, I should
Right.
save these for. I should do like an annual tasting or something like that of them
Yeah.
for the next
Right.
5 years or something, and
Right.
that was foiled pretty
Now,
by one night of
Richard,
fun.
you remember, especially when you're a home brewer, I know for the commercial brewers, it's hard for them not to want to get at those barrels, but they have a schedule going out. Like if I'm talking Icarus with all the barrels that they have on the wall there in Icarus, they have it scheduled out. This is gonna come out, 12 months from now, 13 months from now. So when you're a home brewer though, and you're brewing 5-gallon batches, like what I had is I had a 5-gallon barrel, which you can see, you can see right at the bottom of the screen there. That's a 5-gallon barrel. Now, Richard, you actually were here for a show while that was still aging in the barrel. And if you remember, I pulled some of it out of the barrel and we had a little taster of it. That's before it was completely done. But I was very smart about it because I did bottle some of it. So I figure I'll try it, a year from now and see how it is. Because I used the barrel a couple of times. I used it for an Imperial Stout, and then I used it for a Belgian Dark Strong. And, I did bottle a few of it, and I'll leave it until next year and see what happens with it. So Butch, you see the conversation you got started? We're talking about barrels now, so you should be very proud, Butch. Now, going back to beer news a little bit. Now, you're out there in Colorado. Okay, beautiful Colorado. I know Richard went out there between shows. Was that this year, Richard?
Last year, May.
Last year, and
Yeah.
I almost didn't get him back here because I think he wanted to stay
That
there.
happens.
I think he wanted to stay out there. But there's an announcement here. The biggest craft brewer in the country, it's still considered craft brewer, is Yuengling, which is a staple around here. John Kashu likes to say that if he's at any type of event or something about that, or something, and if he sees they have Yuengling on tap, he breathes a sigh of relief and says, okay, this is going to be okay. It's not just Miller Lite. It's not just Bud Light. It's not just Coors Light. It's Yuengling. So this is going to be okay. So Yuengling has been mostly East Coast. They haven't been available out by you. Am I correct, John?
That is correct, other than their version of Smokey and the Bandit. People putting beer in their trunk and coming across the Mississippi heading west. As someone from Pittsburgh, I would say I'm right in there with
there you go with Yuengling.
relief with having Yuengling on tap. And the way you order Yuengling in Pittsburgh is just, I'll take a lager.
There you go.
Right. Isn't that amazing?
Now, Richard, you're a Philly guy, so you know that too. You could come back and comment. You're frozen. We lost you for a little bit.
Yeah.
So anyway, why am I talking about Yuengling? Well, I'm talking about Yuengling because Yuengling reached an agreement with Molson Coors, to distribute out there, out west. So I guess Molson Coors is going to produce Yuengling beer at the breweries out there for West Coast distribution. So I thought I would bring that up on the news. It's fairly news. We're like right on top of this, Richard. This is only like a few days ago. So John,
wow.
Just overall, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, good for them, right? I think the day would eventually come where they do it, and the other day was the day. And I think the way my understanding of it was they set up a separate joint venture with Molson Coors, so it'll be its own entity. And just as Yuengling has done over their 150 plus years of business, they'll move slowly and methodically through the partnership on where they want to distribute first. And I think that'll be dependent on where they produce the beer, whether it's Colorado, Texas, or I can't remember where the third production facility for Molson Coors is. But yeah, I mean, now they're going to be moving into 25 new states, but as I said, they move methodically, and the last state they went into was Arkansas in 2017, I think, so 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's methodic.
Yeah, so they're not. I know they have 25 states to go into, plus the 3 states in the Northeast there: Vermont, Maine, and New Hampshire. And I think it'll be a slow rollout. I don't think they're not gonna be like, all right, we're going into half the 25 states now. I think they're gonna take I think I read a year to figure out where they're producing and figuring out the supply chain logistics for that state and maybe the immediate states around it, and then moving from there, seeing how things go, expanding from that. So great to see them moving further west. As someone who is from Pennsylvania, now in Colorado, and I just find it just a little humorous that they're now partnering with Coors, and Coors had that whole notion of taking their product from the west and taking it east, and now it's vice versa. So kind of
Right, and I wonder
poetry there.
I wonder if Yuengling, what they're thinking is about moving out the West Coast, because I mean, it's not a known thing out there, right? I mean, the only people who know it are obviously if you're a transplant, like you said, and people smoking and abandoning it across the country. Right. So I wonder what their plan is to market it out there, because it's really still a pretty big. There's still a ton of breweries.
Yeah. That'll be interesting to see kind of their marketing plan and campaign. And
are you from out east? Remember?
yeah, right. Tell everyone about us. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I think they'll. It's 2 big family-owned breweries that I think can support one another in this new venture. So good for them.
Now, for you, someone from Pennsylvania, Yuengling was like a household name when you were growing up. Yuengling, you have Yuengling, you had Rolling Rock out that way also.
Icy Light.
A lot of old iconic names. You still have Steel Reserve out there, don't you?
Steel Reserve. There's Iron City, which is the regional beer in Pittsburgh. Rolling Rock was definitely gave Yuengling a run for its money in Pittsburgh for market share.
That's exactly where my dad is from.
Latrobe, right?
One town over. Yeah, he's from Ligonier. Yeah, right next to Latrobe.
Yeah, it's right down the turnpike.
Right.
And Rolling Rock is actually my earliest memories of drinking beer, which is many, many years ago. Probably way before you were born, John.
I'm not going to date you.
Is drinking the pony bottles with my dad.
Yeah, there you go.
Rolling Rock.
Yeah.
The little pony-sized bottles. A lot of good memories on that. So
yeah, I think it'll be good. It won't be included. I know one thing as far as the Brewers Association is concerned and how we calculate craft volume is that any volume coming out of that will not be included in our data set
Okay.
because it's 50% ownership by Molson Coors, which is not within
Which is
our
not
craft
craft.
definition. Yeah.
Okay, but Yuengling is still craft.
Yuengling will remain in there, and
Yeah.
they have no intention of giving up ownership of their brewery. They're
Yeah.
kind of just going it. They're giving the product out, and Molson Coors is producing it for them, and then they'll decide together on
Mhm.
how to distribute it. So
And Yuengling, you think will stay based in Pennsylvania?
I think so.
They're not going
I
to be
mean, they
like,
got that huge production facility in Tampa too.
oh, right, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Their headquarters is in Pottsville. Pottstown. But
Pottstown, yeah. Pottsville is another
but their
town
big
in
production is in
Pennsylvania.
they have a huge production facility in Tampa.
Yeah.
which is pretty-
Yes,
pretty
that's right. That's true. That's true. So they're not
When
going to
you're-
make the move out west like the Corleone family. They're not moving out to Vegas and doing the compound there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a huge investment to open up your own brewery, and this probably makes a lot more financial sense to see what the product will do in the marketplace without having to put huge capital investment in to build a brewery. So I think it's smart. I think it's a smart move by them. And
Yeah.
now that everyone is kind of, maybe back in the 70s and 80s and maybe even 90s, you didn't have that great migration and ease of movement across the country. And now I think you have a lot more people moving about. So I
Mhm.
think you'll have a lot of people out here who know Yuengling brand and will be really excited to have
Mhm.
it. And that'll be their guerrilla marketing tactic, I think, for the most part.
Yeah, that's exciting. Richard, were you saying something? I'm sorry, my friend.
Oh no, I was actually my wonder was just I know I froze at some point. I just wondered, do you think in a modern world is Yuengling even worried about the idea of being considered craft anymore? 'Cause I know even like a year ago, on a few podcasts we've made the rounds on, the word craft has almost been, what does that really mean nowadays, right? I mean, that's a big open thing. I mean, the guy who has a 5-gallon system, it just has a tiny tap room is craft, and so is Yuengling. So it's a really disparaging thing. They're really very different entities. So
yeah,
I
I think
wonder,
we've transitioned away, at least from the Brewers Association standpoint. I think we harp more on small and independent, and I know when you think of small, you probably don't think of Yuengling, but in comparison to those more global conglomerate brands, it is small.
Cash.
And
Sorry.
so 2.6 million barrels by Yuengling is huge, no doubt, but comparatively to Anheuser-Busch or Molson Coors, which are producing tens of millions of barrels a year, it is small.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, not even the same league, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we've recognized that, and I think that's why we've changed up our board of directors to add in seats like the tap room seats that we've created in the last few years, and expanded our brew pub seats as well, and given those smaller operation breweries a bigger voice at our board of directors table. So we're definitely, I think we definitely listen to that, and I think we're making good representation changes on that moving forward.
While we're still talking about Colorado, I watched the series on Netflix, Cobra Kai, the Karate Kid reboot. But in every episode, Johnny is drinking Coors Banquet beer.
That's good product placement, right?
Yeah, he's drinking Coors Banquet beer. And the actor says he doesn't know why he doesn't really drink it. He doesn't know why the producers included that, but it's actually Coors Banquet, which is actually not a bad beer. That's a decent beer to Coors Banquet. That's the original.
Yeah,
That's
it
the
is.
original. Sam Elliott used to do those commercials, Richard. He has almost as good a voiceover voice as you.
I'll bet he has a better one. I'll go with that. I can bet he does. That's funny, though. That's why I never think of Coors Banquet beer. All I hear Coors, and I think of it as Coors Light. It's just like when we talk about Yuengling, you automatically call it lager. People think Yuengling.
Well,
I just think Coors Light. Like, I know they must have other beers,
You
but
know, honestly, that is an
I never see them.
That's an amazing marketing push right there. That's a tremendous marketing push that
Right.
they got. You know, they really have that synonymous with the whole thing.
Right.
You know, they have it synonymous. So let's talk, you know, we talked about a lot of stuff so far. John, let's talk about the AHA itself, the
All
American
right.
Homebrewers Association. Just, you know, some of our viewers, listeners, however they may be getting this particular Zoomcast, podcast, whatever it might be, are not aware of maybe what the AHA. I know there's a ton of members. I'm a member. A number
Excellent.
of the folks in my homebrew association are members. Talk about the AHA, really what the purpose is, how many members there are, et cetera.
Yeah, thanks. So the American Homebrewers Association, as some may know, was started out of just the love of homebrewing back in the 70s by Charlie Papazian, who has great name recognition.
Relax, have a
Kind of,
homebrew.
yeah, relax, don't worry, have a homebrew. And, you know, many people know his name, but maybe not the association he started. But him and Charlie Matson, back in the 70s in Boulder, started teaching homebrewing classes in Boulder. And Charlie started getting, you know, a lot of traction on teaching these classes. And he has awesome stories about it. If you ever get a chance to see him speak and hear him talk about, I think at his keynote speech at HomebrewCon in Portland, he gave some great stories of how it started, and one included I think an FBI agent coming in or something, because homebrewing wasn't federally legal in the United States back then. Back when Prohibition was repealed, home winemaking was permissible, but they did not include homebrewing, which kind of created this lack of, you know, of brewery creation in the U.S. post Prohibition up till the 1970s. And so he started the American Homebrewers Association in 1978. They launched in that December, right as the bill to allow homebrewing to be federally legal was passed. And so they kind of claim 1979 is really when homebrewing became signed as law.
Not in New Jersey.
Not in New Jersey. So yeah, so that's a good point. It's federally legal and recognized, but all 50 states had to go through and recognize that statute. Whether they adapted just the statute or passed their own state law to allow homebrewing to be permissible in the state. New Jersey, for instance, you used to have a permit to homebrew up till 2012 was an interesting fact, which I forgot about up until today. And so over the years, they launched Zymerzy Magazine with that membership and have since grown to 42,000 members worldwide. About 10% of that is international membership. And we're a 501c6, which is a not-for-profit, which is a little bit different than a non-profit. And we have since then HomebrewCon has been a huge thing. That's our annual conference that travels around the country. National Homebrew Competition is the competition that I run. It's the largest amateur beer competition in the world. It's about 9,200 entries was the last time was the highest count that we've had in the competition.
Wow.
What else?
Now, let me ask you about that competition,
Yeah.
John. How did this year affect the Homebrew Con? Because I know the convention was supposed to be in Nashville this year, which didn't take place in person. So why don't you talk a little bit about the challenges you had with the AHA and Homebrew Con with the pandemic?
Yeah, good question.
I am full of them, John. Tell them, Richard.
Certainly was something that we were looking at, but didn't. I think there was some concern that it was going to come over to the United States back in January and beginning of February, and we kind of started talking about it internally, like what do we do if this gets bigger than, if this becomes a big thing in the US and starts really changing things. And it really accelerated in that week in March when things started be canceling and cases started rising. And unfortunately, in hindsight, I wish that we had canceled the competition back in beginning of February and prevented everyone from shipping their beer into the competition. But back in that middle of February shipping window, there wasn't really a great concern about the pandemic, and really found ourselves in a tough situation for the competition, at least, that we had all this beer. Some of it was sorted, some of it wasn't sorted at all. It was in 13 different states, or 12 different states. There are 2 in California, 2 sites, first round sites, and needed to find a solution as to whether or not we could accurately and efficiently judge the beer in a time frame that was safe for our judges and organizing teams and anyone else involved in the competition. And it became rapidly clear that that was not going to be the case, especially it happening across 12 states, some of which were much worse in the beginning and middle of March than others. And so really the way we pivoted was, we can't get the beer back to everyone. That would cost, some people shipped from far and wide, some people dropped off. Getting people to go into the drop-off locations and set up safely, sorting through 750 entries, which is about 1,500 bottles, to get them, to get homebrewers back their 2 bottles per entry. Didn't seem like it was going to be an efficient thing to do, and seemed like a monumental task, especially considering that some people weren't even allowed to leave their house at the time or get into the, like, for example, the Philadelphia location. They couldn't even get into the drop-off location at Keystone Homebrew Supply because Montgomery County was not allowing businesses to open for anyone to go into. So having that all happen really quickly made it difficult to return anything. So the least we could do was return all the entry fees, which we did. And actually had a lot of people reach out and say, keep the entry fees to cover experience expenses, which was really a shocking and humbling thing. And I couldn't thank them enough for offering to do that. They definitely, no member had to do that, and a lot did. We had over almost 300 entrants choose to just waive their refund. And some sites did judge some beer. San Francisco just finished up judging all the beer back in August safely. Some had to get rid of it right away. We tried to find creative ways to do something with the entries, not just dump it down the drain. That was, it's a sad sight to imagine. And so a lot of first round organizing sites turned it into hand sanitizer or donated it to educational purposes or first responders, which was really great to see, rather than it just go to waste completely. Obviously, I wish that either people didn't send it in, or B, we could have found a way to judge it, but there was just no safe way to keep everyone healthy and not spend a fortune to do so after things had already transpired as far as the pandemic was concerned. So that was tough to navigate so quickly, and the first round organizers and the AHA and the Brewers Association teams were super supportive and helpful in executing that. And then we had to switch our focus to HomebrewCon and wondering if we were going to go to Nashville or not. and then quickly get a decision on a force majeure, which is just a fancy word for some big event that's out of your control and you can't have the event in the place that you had planned on having it. Pandemic is a perfect example of a force majeure.
Mm-hmm.
And quickly pivoted to doing HomebrewCon online within a 6-week period, gathering speakers, sponsors, finding a platform, getting registrations, and then executing it rather successfully, and had 800 plus attendees for that conference, which I thought was amazing to have that. And yeah, it was a little stressful for sure, but we pulled it. I don't know. Did you attend the online conference?
No, I did not. Sorry.
All good. No pressure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was something that we could do to salvage not having it in person, and it was great to see that collective community come together and, you know, just be excited to recognize each other's names in a chat box and, you know, attend these seminars that were supposed to be in person and, you know, bring some sense of community during a rather isolated time in everyone's life. So
It does sound like a good idea to get out to San Diego next year, though. So
yeah.
now, when is it going to? Do you have the date set for next year?
Yeah, June 17th to the 19th.
Okay, June 17th to the 19th. Richard, can you hear me? We'll go do a show from out there. I think he's disconnected right now.
You should. There's so many people. A lot of podcasts go out and they'll do a show at HomebrewCon, and plenty of people to talk with, right? Plenty of guests to bring in that you might otherwise not get. So, and you can be covering, you know, the award ceremony.
Well, maybe I'll enter a beer also.
Should.
Out there, maybe I'll enter a beer into it. So since I'm the only one, the last podcast we did, I was the only one who didn't have a medal for anything. Everyone else on the podcast had a medal. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this. I'm going to keep one of these medals and just hang it behind my bar. So I have it. You know, that's what I'm going to do with that. Now, we talked about the Homebrew Competition. Now, you're also involved with GABF too, correct, John?
I am.
Now, how is that working this year? I know that's a virtual one too. I am planning on attending that one this weekend. Talk a little bit. Now, GABF, for those of you uninitiated, I think a lot of people listening to this or watching this are very familiar with the Atlantic City Music and Beer Festival, where there's judging, etc. A lot of fun, a lot of food, etc. So you're interested. So I know there's a lot of interest here in South Jersey around that, a lot of participation. Again, amongst many of our listeners, I know South Jersey Beer Scene, we always have a booth and do live shows from there, etc. GABF, why don't you talk a little bit, John, about GABF, the size of it compared to other festivals throughout, not just the United States, throughout the world?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's the biggest festival in the United States. We have somewhere usually between 800 and 900 breweries and over 4,000, between 4,000 and 4,500 beers serving at the festival over 3 days. There are 4 sessions during those 3 days. There are 2 on Saturday. One is for our members only session. So it's for American Homebrewers Association members, Brewers Association members only. And it's also right after the award ceremony concludes for the competition that also is happening at the same time usually as the festival. So you get to go to this members only session and try all the award-winning beers before everyone else. But yeah, it's massive. We take up the entire Colorado Convention Center, six halls that we take up. 62,000 people come throughout the 3 days of the festival. You know,
62,000 people.
62,000 people.
That's bigger than most towns.
Yeah, and the economic impact for the city is huge. It's above 20 million. As well as, as I mentioned, the competition is going on at the same time. That's not open to the public, but that's a big component of this entire thing is the GABF competition, which we are doing this year. And so for this year, we can't have the festival in person, obviously. It wouldn't be safe and proper. And, the Colorado State has repurposed the convention center to be an overflow for hospitals if it ever got to that. So that was another kind of reason not to be able to do it at the convention center this
Right,
year.
and that's similar to the Atlantic City Convention Center.
Yeah.
I think at the time the convention would have been, at the time the festival would have been the original days, it was in fact a triage for COVID-19
Yeah.
patients. Welcome
So,
back, sir.
Thank you.
So, it's not as big as Oktoberfest. It's not as long, but, Oktoberfest has over 6 million people go through there. Great British Beer Festival is pretty big as well. I don't think it might be the same size. I can't remember how big Great British Beer Festival is, but yeah, I mean, it's a massive undertaking in our events department, which is now 4 people, does an incredible job putting on that world-class event every year. This year, again, obviously can't have it, so we pivoted to a virtual component, so there'll be some educational things happening with it, but also lower barrier to attend the festival, which is more of a passport program.
Right.
And just for anyone listening, it's basically you buy a passport to the festival and you get to take that passport to participating breweries in your area or where you may travel.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd get some sort of deal by going to that participating brewery, whether it be free flight or free pint or maybe they have a special beer produced just for passport holders, which was kind of our way to get people to go visit their local breweries at a time that they need visitors and they need to be getting their product out the door one way or the other. This was a way to do that over a 3-week period. So continue to go visit your local breweries, everyone in your area, safely, of course. And as far as the competition is concerned, instead of doing it over 3 days, which is with 350 judges and 200 staff and judging over 10,000 beers during that time, we're judging a little less than 9,000 beers this year, which is still an incredible turnout, I think, given the situation of everything. I think people will just want to enter something and have something to celebrate, right? And we have, I think it's 8,700 beers. We're judging that over 3 weeks. We started last week on Tuesday. And instead of 350 judges, we're going with about 50 judges per session over up until pretty much October 4th to get it all done. And so that's what a lot of staff has been helping out on, and it's something to kind of celebrate for the BA and for the beer community that we get to do something. Granted, we have a lot of safety precautions in place for it that have been put together by our amazing competition team, following a lot of CDC and WHO guidelines. And yeah, so far so good. It's been a positive for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds like a huge event.
Yeah. Normally it's a massive event. I mean, even the competition just this year is still massive. I mean, it's still 8,700 entries.
Right. That's a lot.
Yeah, we're doing it over 3 weeks, and with, your capping capacity as far as personnel, 50 judges a day. They're doing 3 sessions a day over that time period. and only having 80 people in a warehouse at a time to make sure that there's proper distancing going on and put in a bunch of ventilation systems and having proper PPE gear. And yeah, it's still massive to put on, and it's just added complications and complexity to it all. But that wasn't going to deter us from putting on a successful event.
Right.
Hey,
Yeah,
Richard, you missed it before. We're going to San Diego next year for HomebrewCon.
I don't see how we could not.
We're going to do a show from there.
Absolutely.
You sound good?
Of course.
We missed out Atlantic City this year, so
Yeah.
we got to go 3,000 miles to the other coast.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, let's go out there. We know a
It'll be
Stone
worth
guy.
it, I promise.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure it will be. I'm sure it will
And
be.
Stone's headquarters is out there, right? In San Diego?
Stone-
Yeah,
out there,
Escondido, yeah.
Yeah, we know a Stone guy.
Well, there
Excellent.
you go.
Yeah.
You have an in.
They could be
Have
our
an in.
guests. You know, they could host us.
Could you imagine? That'd be a good day.
We'll sleep in their tap room.
You got AleSmith out there. You got Pizza Port.
Is that where Modern Times is too?
You got Modern Times. They have a huge facility out there. They've been to their brewery.
Yeah.
There's a lot of breweries in San Diego, isn't there?
I think there might be over 100 now.
Yeah, that's what I thought
In
there was.
the
That's what I
proper
remember reading.
San Diego proper, yeah.
And now we have 100 in New Jersey. Compare that, Richard.
I mean, there are over 1,000 brewers in California.
Yeah.
So,
Right. It's a big state.
Huge state.
Fair enough.
40 million people. So
Right.
Now, how is if you could touch on it, John? How has the pandemic affected? What challenges have you had at the Brewers Association AHA with the pandemic?
well, if it's not one thing, it's another. There have been a variety of supply chain issues that have come up. So you got CO2 shortage is one thing that's kind of lingering. We've managed to get through further than we thought we were going to get through, but still a pressing issue. The aluminum shortage that's happening right now, the canning shortage,
Okay.
is an issue.
Mm-hmm.
As far as raw materials for brewing, there hasn't been a huge problem with that for the most part. And a lot of our surveys that we did in the beginning of the pandemic showed a much more dire picture than we've seen. And that was also before Congress passed any sort of relief package.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically the PPE loans. I know there
Okay.
were some grants as well that
Mm-hmm.
breweries took advantage of,
Right.
but specifically the PPP loans
Mm-hmm.
really helped prop up and support breweries throughout the summer. I think the real concern now is that there's no package definitively on the books for the fall before the election.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, we have a huge amount of support in Congress. It's like 375 members in the House and well over half of the members in the Senate. I think upwards of 70 in the Senate that support some sort of relief package for breweries. And that could happen in a lame duck session, as well as making the Craft Brewers Modernization and Tax Reform Act permanent. So at the end of this year, the federal excise tax is going to double back to $7 a barrel from $3.50, which has a sunset clause for December 31st, 2020. So every brewery is going to see their taxes double January 1st if that is not made permanent. So we've put everything we have in place. We've done all the legwork. And we're hoping that it can be driven home on some sort of vehicle. It's not going to be passed on its own. It's going to be passed in some sort of omnibus bill before the end of the year. And, we're still remain optimistic and positive about that happening. But certainly they're waiting till the last moment to do so, which has kind of been the case the last few years on that happening. But, a lot of some I guess some other positives that have come out of the pandemic for breweries is direct to consumer.
Oh.
And a lot of states and a lot of the guilds and states, a lot of state brewers guilds want to make that permanent, because now they have a track record showing that the sky isn't falling. You know, you're not having, you know, pandemonium is not happening. We can do this responsibly and reasonably, and it's just going to be another method to allow a brewery to survive, especially right now. And
Right.
the access to market is limited, and breweries need to get their brands and product out to consumers, and this is just another way to do that, rather than going through the traditional.
The bill you're talking about, John, I know a lot of the breweries have put out, you know, messages to their constituents, you know, to their followers, to contact their congressman, you know, contact the government about that particular bill to make sure that that stays permanent, that particular thing on the taxation. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. So
yeah, you can find, there's a ton of information at brewersassociation.org on that, and as well as franchise reform law for states, which would include direct to consumer. And there's kind of a really big, interesting movement happening with that reform and that kind of policy. I think, again, you know, now that consumers literally have had a taste of what direct to consumer is like,
sure, yeah.
they're not going to want it to go away.
You
And
know,
I think
and that has probably saved a lot of these breweries.
Definitely.
That's probably saved a lot of them, is the delivery side. I know back in March, there was horror out there about what was going to happen, how many brewers were going to fall by the wayside. And I think that's certainly something that helped them.
We were seeing initially, before all those changes happened and relief was implemented, over 50% of the breweries in the U.S. were going to shut down within 1 to 3 months if nothing had been done. And it goes to show that some of those things absolutely helped and propped up breweries that otherwise were going to struggle. I mean, over 60% of breweries in the U.S. are brew pubs and tap rooms. They rely on that foot traffic and people going into their brewery. If they can't have that, how are they going to get their product to the consumer? And one way of doing that is direct to consumer, whether it be takeout or actual delivery. So I think it's got movement, it's got legs, as they say. And there are now 22 states that are trying to make it a permanent policy in their state. New Jersey was not on that list as I checked, but that's not to say that they won't be. And yeah, I think it's, I think, you know, I know it's really hard right now for a lot of breweries, and I hope that some things are done, continue to be done to help support them down the road. I know every state has its own set of issues beyond just what I've mentioned in general, but those are just two things. The federal excise tax and direct to consumer are two big things that we can work on as a trade association for our members to continue to support them.
You know, it's interesting in New Jersey, you know, several months ago, they allowed outdoor dining, which meant that the breweries that had areas for outdoors where they could have people, you know, they've been able to flourish maybe and build something that maybe they wouldn't have done beforehand, but maybe that's going to be an ongoing issue with them. Every year they're going to have some type of outdoor beer garden or something like that. You know, they've opened up indoors, but it's 25% capacity indoors, Richard?
Yeah, 25%. Yeah, 25%. Yep.
So for some of the breweries, they haven't even opened indoors because it's not worth it to them to open indoors where they only have room it's a capacity of 50, and okay, we can have 11.5 people in here.
And they
at
know
a
they
time,
can't.
So
And I think the governor knows it can't stay at 25% if the numbers stay down.
Yeah.
If our numbers stay this flat, they're going to have to open up to 50 pretty soon.
right,
Yeah.
right, and and hopefully that'll evolve, and as people are safer and things start going the right direction, that'll help spur everything else on during that time. So
I think another thing that is that we're actively kind of going on the offense about at the BA to help guilds out is you're going to have a lot of budget falls, state budget pitfalls, and kind of gaps now that they weren't anticipating, and they're going to be looking for other ways to close that gap with different sources of revenue. And one that's always looked at is taxing alcohol.
Right.
And so we're actively educating and supporting all the guilds to be prepped for that sort of fight in 2021 of raising state alcohol taxes to shore up those pitfalls on the state budget. So, I think it would be an ill-advised decision to do something like that. It'd be affecting a lot of small businesses and a lot of communities, and I don't think raising taxes on small businesses like that would be the right way to go. But it's just something that we anticipate happening, and are trying to get ahead of it.
Boy, they love the tax.
We've been talking very serious here, Richard. We're
Yeah,
getting off of this topic.
Light it up.
Huh?
Let's lighten it up.
We need to lighten this up. So, John, I'm going to ask you a question. We bounce around some. What is your desert island 4-pack?
Oh, boy.
4-pack. You can mix them. It doesn't have to be one type of beer.
It's going to be, I'm going to choose 4 for sure.
Okay, you have a 4-pack. What do you choose?
Okay. Well, first I would make it the biggest vessel I could possibly have if I'm on a desert island.
That's
So
true. We didn't
whether
say 12 ounces,
whether it be
16
a
ounces.
keg 4-pack.
You know what? That is, Richard, that is the first type of answer that I've ever heard like that. John, you win a prize. I'm going to send you a medal. That's true. We never said
answer.
16 ounce, 12 ounce. We never said that.
Can't believe it.
Yeah.
My
So
God.
at least a half barrel, because that way I can keep it pressurized.
Okay.
And I would probably go Light Shine Helles from Wibby. I don't know if you guys, it's from
where's that from?
Colorado. Award-winning Helles lager. It's one of my favorite styles. I actually don't brew it because I don't want to ruin the style for myself. So that would be one of them. I would choose Sip of Sunshine as well from Lawson's.
From Sean Lawson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. I got to go with Two Hearted. It's the first IPA I ever had.
Okay.
And it just it sticks with me wherever I go. I always get it if it's on tap. And then probably Slow Pour Pills out of Bierstadt Lager House in Colorado. They're just phenomenal lager production facility. Their Slow Pour Pills is, when you come out here next, you should absolutely go there. It is so refreshing, and if I'm in a desert, I'm going to want that beer.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
That does.
That sounds delicious. Wow.
And they do slow. It is slow pour. I mean, they fill it up halfway. It's
they do, and they
let
play
it
around with
sit,
the
and then
foam and everything.
Yeah, no, it
Huh.
is super traditional. And
Do they have the side pour? The
Yeah.
side tap? Yeah. Ooh,
That does
Gotta
sound very
go.
traditional.
delicious.
yeah, so that would be the 4-pack.
Nice.
That's a good 4-pack, all in half kegs. Man, you are set.
Awesome.
Yeah, that should be good for a little while until and then I guess I could use the kegs as a flotation device and build a raft to get the hell out of there.
Right, to get back to the land so you can get some more beer.
Get more beer.
Right.
Nice. Nice.
This is a pretty smart method.
Hey,
I like
Richard,
this.
how about you, now that you have a new method here that you can actually have half a keg now?
That's fantastic. A 4-pack of kegs.
We're back. Hey, like I said, we never put a limit on the size.
No, we never did.
Genius.
No, that's great.
That's when you got that clear mountain air in Colorado. To get you thinking clear.
We got some sort of air. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, Richard, you have any? You can pick different ones than last time.
I know. You know what's funny? I can't believe I forgot from last time to go find what is. This is the worst thing in the world, John, when you have a beer on the tip of your tongue and you just can't think of it. And it happened to me last time, and I said, I'm going to leave here. So next time he asks me, I'm going to have it, and I didn't. And now it's killing me because it's Belgian. It's on the tip of my tongue. And, oh, God, I cannot think what it is.
Is it from Belgium?
Yeah, it's a sour.
It's a sour. Is it from?
It's like $20. Comes out in a big bottle. It's a red ale.
Is it from Cantillon?
I think so.
Is it I wonder if it's the Flanders Red, Cantillon.
I think it might be Flanders Red, Richard.
It could be.
If it's a sour, I would guess it's a Flanders Red.
It comes out. I guess once a year. I know it's like $20 a bottle.
Okay.
It could be that. I don't know. All right, so let me pick some beers here.
I bet it's Cantillon, and I bet it's. Is it the Cantillon Creek, maybe?
Oh, I know. Actually, no, but I do know what that is. Because I thought I didn't like creeks based off somebody else's, and I had that and went.
Then you're like, this is a creek. This is delicious.
Right, that's really good.
Come on, let's go.
Okay, so let's go. So I'm gonna, since we've been talking about it, and it just works. I'm going to take a Yuengling with me.
All right.
There you go. Okay.
I have to take, only because I do it every time, and I always, the story always is, it's the first beer I fell in love with. It's by a company called Neshaminy Creek Brewing. It's their Leon Imperial Stout, which is just...
Rob would be pleased you mentioned that again.
Yep. And it's never not on the list. It's always there. I am going to take, I just had one recently, and I was wearing the hat, and I forgot how good this beer is. I'm going to take a Tonewood Improv, and it's rare that I would ever take an IPA, but man, I really like that beer. It's a solid IPA for me. You know, it hits all the things I love in an IPA, which it's just so good. And, you know, I love those guys over at Tonewood. The very last one, Well, I think I have to take a sour, so I'm going to take the one I took last time, which is still so really. Actually, no, we just said it. I'm gonna take the Cantillon. I'm in.
Hell yeah! Cannot go wrong with that.
Nope, cannot go wrong. Yep, that's absolutely right.
I'm gonna stick to Europe for mine. I'm gonna say Saison Dupont.
Always
I love it. That
so
is
refreshing.
Just one of my favorites of all time. Saison Dupont. I'm going classic Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. That's always good at all times. You know, I'm going to put on my list a beer I've never had, but in one of my magazines, you know, not Zymergy, actually in Craft Beer and Brewing, the stout, they have Toppling Goliath Assassin. Have you ever had that, John?
I've had Toppling Goliath. I don't know if I've had Assassin or not.
That's 100 out of 100. It was rated.
Wow.
So Richard, I asked our illustrious leader if he could get me that actual beer.
Nice.
So that is on my list. And what's lastly on my list? I'm going to stay dark, and I'm going to say Edmund Fitzgerald Porter again.
Oh, that was on my list one week. Such a good one.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite beers.
All right, so I've had their King Son before.
Yeah.
Toppling Goliath. Yeah, I've had a lot of that.
Uh-huh.
I don't think I've had the one you're mentioning.
I've told this to a couple people, John. So you knew the Edmund Fitzgerald, obviously.
Yeah.
I didn't have that in my life until last year.
Wow. I guess me being from Pittsburgh allows me to.
Yeah, it's only a couple hours away.
Yeah, it's not even hard to get out here. I mean, it's not that it's hard to get.
No, it's not.
You
just gotta know it.
it's one people told me about, and all. I've done a few of these beer podcasts. I've been on one for 5 years, and we never drank it there. And it wasn't until I mentioned it on a podcast at the AC Beer Show where they're like, "Wait a minute, you've never had it? Get out and go get it." And I literally walked right over and grabbed it. I'm like, "Oh yeah, now I understand why people are talking about it."
And there are so many honorable mentions out there. Like Dogfish 120 that's a classic nowadays, I think. Dogfish 120, there's just so many, and I haven't even included, we got to do this one time where we're just including local South Jersey breweries or even just New Jersey breweries, because
just from 2 reasons we've had from Back for Flag and Battle River there.
Some of that, some of those.
It's just past 2 we've had on.
Icarus always has great beers,
sensational beer
all over the place, and one of my favorite beers over the last year, if I had to pick a beer over the last year that has been my favorite, it's Reinheit's Pilsner out of Source Brewing. And they're very classic. It's in Colts Neck, New Jersey, but they do the side,
with a name like that, I would imagine.
Yeah. Just so many good things out there. All right, we are going to wrap up. Like I said, you can find us. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and see me and Richard as much as you want. SouthJerseyBeerScene.com, Instagram, Facebook. Please make sure you follow us. We do have a competition come up, and we actually named the competition. Actually, I named the competition. Let me see. What is it called? And my daughter did the logo for the competition, Richard.
Naturally.
The Homebrew Harvest Competition, AHA
Nice.
sanctioned competition. So you homebrewers out there, again, check out South Jersey Beer Scene. You'll find the details about the competition, type of beers, etc., and so forth. And we'll probably be judging them sometime in November. So thank you for that. John, last words on AHA, BA, etc.
Thank you for all of our members and to any of our future members. Thank you for bringing me onto the show, Rich and Victor, and this was fun.
I have to say this, Richard, you look like the video for Bohemian Rhapsody right now. If
awesome.
you were like 6 of you, you could be singing Scaramouche, Can You Do the Fandango?
Right.
Just the way you're
Thunderbolts and lightning.
Now. I'm telling you, I'm just looking at that. So, John, again, thank you so much. I look forward to meeting you in person one of these days. I know that we've been on Zoom a number of times over the last couple of months. So, Richard,
I think our big AHA HomebrewCon event could be in San Diego. Will be great for that.
That sounds
Agreed.
Good. You know what? And I think that's a place I might be able to get my wife to go to, San Diego.
Yeah.
We're
trying to get all of our members out there, so definitely spread the word, and it'll be a big celebration, especially after the year that we're having.
Oh, absolutely. So hopefully, cross our fingers that we can have that happening. So with that, thank you everyone for watching. Again, like I said, SouthJerseyBeerScene.com. Thank you to our sponsors, Eastern Homebrew, Guy Corrado, the mentor and guru,
absolutely,
Gallery Tattoo, and again, SouthJerseyBeerScene.com. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Cheers, all. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.